Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts of Between Terminas on Orient Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching from Oxford Community Television and also those watching on YouTube. We've had an interesting winter this year. Of course, now you can see outside. It's a bright, beautiful day. No snow on the ground. I'll probably change by next week. But you could tell why that's coming, and that's because it's the end of boys basketball season, and we are heading into spring, which is the beginning of, you got baseball, softball, lacrosse, tennis, soccer, etc. And then, of course, we have the long summer, and then, of course, we have football season coming up in the horizon. So, very interesting dynamics coming up there. Let's go to what happened at the state finals on Saturday. Of course, one of the OA schools were in that game, and that was North Farmington. The Raiders making their first appearance ever in the state final. And, of course, it was a heck of an experience for Coach Todd Negoshian, having his dad Tom there alongside Pete Mantilla. But it didn't end up very well. And North Farmington ended up losing to University of Detroit Jesuit 69-49 in the state finals. Of course, there were a lot of subplots that happened that game. We'll go over them. I think clearly when you look at the game itself, when you recap the game, a lot of people are going to say, well, this is the Casillas Winston show. And it clearly was in that game. He had 31 points. Really just controlled the game inside out. I said in the blog when we previewed the game with North Farmington against University of Detroit Jesuit, was if whoever won the point guard match between Billy Thomas and Cassius Winston will win the game. And it clearly showed that Winston won the game basically thanks to his dribble drive decision making. A lot of people questioned this kid's shot ability. And he ended up hitting a couple threes. His outside jumper is probably still the weakest part of his game. If you basically look at how that game was ran, there were a lot of bad decision-making, I think, from North Farmington's end. And that is because when you don't have a developing inside post presence, now, you have Alex Darden. Of course, Darden's one of the, he's a 6'5" baseball player from Cincinnati. Going to play baseball. Hold on a minute. Excuse me. He's a 6'5" baseball player going to Cincinnati playing your post. When you have to rely a lot on him, he has to be a scoring machine. He was not in this game because, when you look at Detroit University of Jesuit's team, you got to look at the two 6'9" Nigerians, Greg Ikeboden and Ike Ikebuken. Of course, they were mentioned so many times on our podcast early on because of what happened. Of course, the Billy Thomas situation. That was another subplot heading in this game, was because when you look at what happened with the Billy Thomas situation, with Billy Thomas Sr., and of course, the University of Detroit Jesuit Athletic Department. What happened there was, it happened. There was a family court custody hearing that ended up going to the going aside of the University of Detroit Jesuit athletic department that ended up taking away the custody rights of Billy Thomas's dad, and that was unfortunate. Because he was the one that brought these two Nigerians into the United States. Very raw basketball players, by the way, might add. But when I look at those two's dominance, and Ikabuku, it's more of Ikabuku that probably has gained a lot more basketball experience with his size at 6'9". Now, a lot of people possibly put him in as a possible Mr. Basketball candidate next year. But he was a big presence in that game against North, besides Winston. And that was one of the matchups that I feared in the blog. And the blog, when I wrote that matchup, was how could North Farmington defend Ikabuku? Thomas Kirchner, Macomb, Dakota. Remember, he was huge against Clarkston. He had trouble with the 2 6'9" Nigerians. He had a lot of trouble. He couldn't make a shot. He couldn't make anything stick. And what happened against Macomb, Dakota in that game was the Cubs defense took a lot of pressure, basically said, you know what? Let everybody else shoot except Jermaine Jackson. Reason why? Jermaine Jackson is Macomb, Dakota's best player and best decision maker, and they basically took him away in that semifinal matchup. Now, with North Farmington, of course, I thought personally was you have three prolific scorers in the outside. When you have Jacob Joe Burr, you have Amari Hardy, who of course transfers from Southfield, and then of course you have Billy Thomas, of course, a prolonged scorer, very good player. I thought with those three players, who knows if they could have got at least 20-15, who knows what would have happened. What happened was, of course, Amari Hardy, it looked like he ended up hurting himself against Lansing Everett in the semifinal. Of course, that was a game North Farmington just dominated. They controlled tempo. They just looked very good against Lansing Everett. Now, Lansing Everett was a Cinderella story of their own right. But a lot of people are going to say North Farmington has not really played anybody, when they got there. I mean, the best team that they played was you have Orchard Lake St. Mary's in district final, or you got Detroit or Wall Lake Central in the semifinal. I mean, in the regional final. The game kind of really looked like that regional final game over at Southfield. Remember, those two teams did play last year, North Farmington and Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit. They played in the semifinal last year. In the regional final last year over at Southfield. That game was won by the University of Detroit Jesuit 52-34. Again, North Farmington had an off night shooting 3. And then they just used their balance. And it kind of had a same remedy of that was how it was used in this game, in the state final game. It kind of was very similar to the regional final game, where the balance killed them. The balance of the play just, it really showed its ugly head. And it happened. It happened because you look at what happened was their balance just absolutely killed them. And it did. I mean, early on, I kind of felt like, in that state final game, I thought North Farmington really was tight. They had to play from behind a lot. I thought North Farmington's shot selection was absolutely terrible. Why would you go shoot threes when you're not hitting them? A lot of shots. They made a lot of poor shots, especially in that first quarter. In that second quarter, it started getting to them, and that's why, and you can't do that against a good team like Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit, because they're going to go in there and they're going to kill you. Their dribble drive penetration defense was terrible. They let Winston do what he does. I thought personally, early on in that game, North Farmington outworked them. It's just that Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit's that talented. They're very talented. There's no doubt that they are very talented. But, when you look at, for North Farmington, I look at an interesting quote from Greg Kelser. He said, where are you going to get the talent next year at North Farmington? Yeah, you're losing 11 seniors, but you do return Amari Hardy, who I think is a Mr. Basketball candidate in the state of Michigan. But you have a strong JV team who was pretty good that will they get you back to Breslin? I don't know, but they're still going to be a good team in the red. There's no doubt about that. Even though we'll go over who I think's the best team in the red in a couple minutes. But you look at what happened with North Farmington. I just think that the reason why they lost was because of poor decision-making on their part. Billy Thomas took some really bad shots. I thought Amari Hardy took some tough shots. But one shot that kind of bothered me, it changed the whole complexion of the game, was North Farmington had a chance to go dunk it, but Alex Darden. If he just lays it in, he lays it in, it's only a 2-point game. Whereas he just tries to dunk it, and totally blows the dunk. UD Jesuit just goes down and scores. Instead of it gets an and one, gets a 3 actually out of it. It's really a 5-point play that changed the whole game. I think that's the reason why North Farmington lost, was because of their poor decision making. I knew they were going to be up for an uphill order, you know what I mean? But you clearly got to look at what happened that game. The shot selection was poor. Decision making was poor. I think not attacking inside is going to Darden inside. I know North Farmington had a lot of success going inside with their dribble drive penetration. But a lot of things, at North Farmington, one of the things that they have is their 3-point shooting. Billy Thomas is one of the best 3-point shooters in the state. And he really was shut down in that process of shooting threes. Most of his points he got came off dribble drive penetration. Whereas Amari Hardy, battling a growing injury. I mean, he did everything he could, but I just think he still wasn't 100%. Jacob Joe Burr, he had a better game, no doubt about it, but he basically, he did very well in that third quarter. You know what I mean? He played very well in that third quarter. There's no doubt about that. But then you have that window around the 4 area. Of course, we all know last year who played the 3-4 area on North Farmington. That was Jerome Rogers, who played at who's now playing at Cleveland State. But it also surprised me how North Farmington did not use their bench, I thought, fully. When you're a team that carries, I think, about 13 players, use them. I mean, in case if they're them, Josh Hogan's, I thought, played okay in that game. I didn't think he played great. But like I said, University of Detroit Jesuit looked like clearly they were the better team than North Farmington. Now, it can't deny what North Farmington did this season. They did a lot of great things this season for this Raider team. They shared the red with Clarkston. Knocked off Clarkston at home. Of course, that was a huge win for North Farmington at the time. Won a district title at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. They won a regional at West Bloomfield. They won a quarterfinal game over Sterling Heights Stevenson at Callahan Hall and the campus of the University of Detroit Mercy. And then, of course, knocking off Lansing Everett. That is a heck of a ride that North Farmington had this year with Coach Todd Negoshin. Heck of a ride. I mean, now you lose 11 seniors from that team. 11 of 13 are seniors. Of course, they returned one sophomore, and they got Amari Hardy coming back, which I think is huge. Now, when I look at the future of North basketball, I still think it's in a good place because of what Tom Negoshin has done with North Farmington. They're one of the top teams in the state of Michigan, and Negoshin's one of the top coaches in the state for a reason. They're that good. They are that good at coaches. They're that good coaches. I mean, a lot of experience over at North on the bench. It was a heck of a ride for the Raiders. Heck of a ride. But when you look at North Farmington, there were some things they could have done much better. I mean, yeah, I would probably say in that state final game decision making, but you can't deny that this team had a successful season. They did have a successful season. Beat Adams twice. They beat Clarkson. I mean, like, that is something that a lot of people at North Farmington will never forget. When you beat a team like Clarkston, then that carries a lot of attention. Of course, we all know what happened when Clarkston lost to Macomb, Dakota in double overtime. It brought a lot of attention because Clarkston rarely loses. They rarely lose. And for a team like North Farmington to go in there and beat them like that, it's absolutely incredible, to say the least. But like I said, North's got a lot of people to replace, and it's not going to be an easy thing. All right, now when we come back, we're going to talk about the state of boys basketball coming up next season here on OAA Now.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I paid for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina here. You can catch them between Taraminas on Orion Neighborhood Television on ONTV at 5 o'clock Mondays. Of course, it's between Taraminas at 5 o'clock on Mondays on Orion Neighborhood Television. We got a lot of things here. Got the future of boys basketball coming in. To next season, there have been a lot of decisions that have been made. I know the new divisions for boys and girls basketball. Probably won't go into much detail about it, but hint, hint, it's looking like it's going to be the same division. So that is basically almost the same divisions. But we'll go over that in a couple months. But when I look at the state of boys basketball heading into next year, there are some questions. When you look at who I think could be the best team in the state of Michigan, there's really, I think, 3 teams that'll be really, really good next year. One of them's in the OAA, but the other 2, let's go with the first, an obvious question. It's going to be the University of Detroit Jesuit Cubs. That's the first team I think is going to be very good because of who they got back. The role players were huge in that state championship game against North Farmington. But you do lose Cassius Winston, who's going to be at Michigan State next year. Very dynamic player. You know, a lot of people have compared Winston to Denzel Valentine. Now, I'm not going to go that far to say that because, remember, Valentine, a little bit more taller than Winston. But Valentine really was not a point guard. He was more of a small forward, could facilitate the ball. And it's very interesting what's going on over at Michigan State because 2 of their bench players were going to transfer out of Michigan State, and then of course that might open up the door for one Josh Jackson to come back to the state of Michigan and to Michigan State. So it could open the door up. So, and it's very interesting to say the least down there. But I'm saying next year, the University of Detroit Jesuits still going to be very good. When you look at the 2 6'9" Nigerians who they're bringing back, Ikabukin and Eggaboden, I think when you look at North Farmington, the strength of this team is going to be can the Cubs find somebody to replace Winston? They have the younger Winston on the team. They have a couple others. One played football, who's back next year for him. I think that a lot of people, the reason why I think they're contenders is because of the 2 6'9" Nigerians who can just go inside the paint and dominate. And they have a very good 3-point shooter coming back. But they got some questions. It's going to be tough replacing Cassius Winston. And there's no doubt about that somebody's going to have to replace him on that team. The question is going to be who. They got some good people who can do it down there. But they got some questions. Hey, next year, of course, and we know Pat Donnelly, good coach. I still question his decision making at times, but I think University of Detroit Jesuits going to be okay heading into next year in the state of Michigan. Next team here up will obviously be one that could be a serious contender next year, and that's Macomb, Dakota. The Cougars, of course, they finished the year undefeated. Ended up losing to University of Detroit Jesuit State semifinal. But a lot of that team that is coming back are going to be seniors next year, and some are going to be juniors this year. Of course, Thomas Kirchner, mentioned him earlier. He's going to be a senior, and he's going to be a junior. And you have Jermaine Jackson, of course. A lot of people know his dad, who played at the University of Detroit Mercy. We all know that he used to coach at Mount Clemens before all that fiasco got into play, which I think was insane. But if Jermaine Jackson would have been the head coach at stayed at Mount Clemens, Mount Clemens would have been an absolutely state powerhouse in the state of Michigan because of the kids he can get. But a lot of people questioned where he was getting that talent from. And Jermaine Jackson is now at Macomb, Dakota because of what happened at Mount Clemens. But Jackson had a really nice year this year. He had a nice campaign. Had some big games. He was huge in that Clarkson game. A lot of people have been looking at Clarkston as pretty much the template, pretty much the team that teams want to beat to get to Breslin. It's kind of like that. It kind of with Clarkson's run. No, was Macomb Dakota's run was very similar to Clarkson's a little bit because, when you have a great Oakland County team going up against a great Macomb County team, whoever wins, and it was in a Macomb County school, it kind of had an ironic similarity to volleyball, where, of course, Lake Orion played Romeo at Romeo. Clarkson ended up playing Macomb Dakota at Macomb Dakota. But when I look at next year's team with Kirchner and also Jackson coming back, I think that's going to work well for Macomb Dakota. I think they're going to run Ramshot in the Macomb area conference. When you look at the Cougars as a team, they're deep. They missed some key players from a year ago. One was out for the season with the knee injury, and could you just imagine if he comes back and he'll probably light it up. It wouldn't surprise me if he lights it up, because that's how good Macomb Dakota is going to be. Is they got plenty of depth, plenty of talent. They're a big school. They ran Ramshot in the district. They ran they won a very good regional with three very good teams in there, and Clarkston, Adams, and also Brandon. Ortonville Brandon was in that district. They won the district at Grand Blanc, knocking off the Bobcats at Grand Blanc, and then of course they went into Midland, beat Midland at Grand Blanc. Of course, Midland, in that regional final beat Saginaw, in which there was a lot of controversy riddled in that game. Of course, mentioned that last week where, of course, a parent went onto the court. Some fans were throwing stuff at the officials, and what happened was, and that ended up boiling over in that game. So, when you look at what happened, to me, that really and I'm not saying that because of what happened in that situation, but Midland ended up having the coaches end up having an issue over it. So, and then Midland ran to Macomb Dakota. Of course, they held their own. The Chemics held their own with the Cougars at Grand Blanc, and then they just could not, they just couldn't get over the hump. And Macomb Dakota, at the end of the day, was too much for Midland. And now Midland, of course, now Macomb Dakota, and then they went to Breslin and ended up getting just completely destroyed by Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit. Mentioned it earlier what the Cubs did in that game against them. The third top team in the state of Michigan I expect next year to be very good is, oddly enough, an OAA team, and that's Clarkston, because of who they got back. I mean, when you return Foster Warrior, you've got an emerging player in C.J. Robinson. Those are your two guards. And then you have, and then, of course, you got Dylan Allison, who can play the three, who's probably going to be playing your three next year. And then, of course, you got some guys who are waiting. Of course, you got a Oxford transfer coming in who's 6'5", who I think that's going to be a huge impact. Now, I think the reason why he transferred was probably the arrival of Justin Wallace to Oxford, which I think was a mistake in his part, in my opinion, because if you could put a tag team of Wallace and that kid had transferred out of Oxford to Clarkston. Oxford would have been a very good basketball team. They're still going to be a good basketball team coming back, but when you look at the reason why Clarkston is, everybody's been saying this could be the year or next year that Clarkston could be a state championship team. And they could be. And it could be. It very well could be. Because, Lawyer's got that much experience. You got Alderson who's got that much experience. And then, of course, the question's going to be is who is in that interior for Clarkson. Clarkson's managed to get some great football players to come and play for him, especially in those 4 or 5 positions. Like, a couple of years, like 2 years ago was Merrick Canada. Last year was Mitch Heaton. So who could be that great football player who could come in and play that interior post, which, Dan Fife likes to have. And you look at, and then you have the emergence of Foster Lawyer. Of course, Lawyer, who's going to be, I think, is going to have another year advanced. I think he's going to be, he's already gotten a lot of Division I offers. I know Michigan State's offered him for sure. I know that there's going to be a lot of others that are going to go after his services when you look at the situation that they've been in. But Clarkson's a team they're deep. They're made for maybe 2 more years of this run. I still don't think they're going to be as strong, but they're still going to be a very good team. I just don't think anybody in the league is going to touch Clarkson next year. I really don't think so. Probably, but it all depends what the MHA does in June. Do they split a team like Clarkston from Lake Orion and Oxford? It's possible, because when you look at the possibilities of moving a district like that, it's possible what the MHA could do in June. If they leave them the same, then you're going to open up. Maybe it could be like, and you're clearly looking at the 3 top teams in the state of Michigan are in the east side here, or in Detroit, Metro Detroit area, in UD, Detroit University, Detroit Jesuit, Clarkston, and Macomb, Dakota, all in the same area. They're in this, and that's why people have asked me about, could we go maybe more of a bracket play? Well, if you want to go more of a bracket play, here's what you do. Is you take Clarkston, you take them out of the regional with Macomb, Dakota, and you put Clarkston up north with Genesee County and Saginaw County and have them clash with Saginaw, which I think, or Saginaw Arthur Hill, which I think Clarkson would have no problem with doing. And then, you could have your top matchups either in the quarterfinal or in the semifinal wrestling, because there's really no clear team besides those 3 teams who I think is going to be very, very good. Now, Detroit, East English Village probably have a strong say about it. They're still going to be very good. They're going to be very talented. But when you look at the teams, I think they're clearly heading in next year's path. I think it's going to be those 3 teams, and those 3 teams are going to be advanced, more elite than the rest of the league. So, than the rest of the entire state. So, that'll be very interesting to say about that and that dynamic. When I look at the league heading into next year, like I said, nobody's touching Clarkson with the way that they're playing. They're just too talented. They're going to be too talented next year. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of people that would like to play Dan Fife. And, I think Dan Fife's going to have a hard time finding games, because not a lot of people like to play him. They're not going to want to play him because, here's the guy that influences the refs. Here's the guy that basically says, he's got 2 very good players. And, of course, he's got that open enrollment rule. I still blame the state for that one. I'll go over that in a couple minutes. But, why I think the state should be held at fault for the open enrollment rule. Also, when I look at teams that could make some noise in the league next year, of course, in the new red division, there's really not going to be a lot to look at. Possibly the only team that could probably, Adams will be down, North Farmington will be down. I think the new Southfield school could make some noise, but they're not to the level of Clarkston. And, I think that, when you look at Southfield, arts in them, technology, I just think that the Warriors are going to be a team that they got Michael Flowers coming back, but I just think end of the day, nobody's touching Clarkson in the new red division. Of course, there's going to be a couple new teams being added to that division. Of course, two of the three teams that shared the white this year moved up in that division. That would be Bloomfield Hills and West Bloomfield. Of course, Mariansky will still be very good. His team will still be very good, but I don't know if they're going to touch level Clarkson. And West Bloomfield, of course, we saw what happened to them against Clarkson. You really can't explain that. White division, of course, I'm shocked about the new addition of Hazel Park back up there into the white. Kind of like a reward. You're playing some very tough teams. Of course, Troy will be better. Troy Athens will be better. You got Oak Park, I think, is going to be better. When you look at the teams in that division in the next year, I think Troy's going to be a team I think to keep an eye on. But also Pontiac, of course. Jalen Kelso is back for Coach Ben Kelso. Pontiac had a really nice year, but they got some questions with their sub-varsity teams about their depth. I think it's going to be a huge concern. But Pontiac's a team I think to keep an eye on in league heading into the year. Stony Creek moving up from the blue to the white. I think Stony's going to have a really tough time in the white because of who they've got. They lost a lot of talent from a year ago. They lost John Sincola. They lost Michael Ryder. They got some talent back, but I just think that the move up to the white division is going to really, really test their mental psyche, and I think they're going to struggle, no doubt. End of the day, I just think that Stony Creek's going to really struggle in that division. The gold division, of course, early spoiler alert, only 5 teams looking like me in that division. Farmington's going to be very talented coming back. A lot of people have been asking me about the Falcons, about why the move down to the gold. When you look at Farmington, this team really, they have a lot coming back, but their sub-varsity teams were not very good. I think when you're in a 5-team division, it's not going to be easy to look at for Farmington's sake. But at the end of the day, this was an opportunity for Farmington to look at themselves in the mirror and figure out things that they need to get done. They've already had history of getting just absolutely clobbered by North Farmington. They're in the same division as Harrison. Of course, Harrison's also in that gold division where, of course, we've known about what is going on with them and their school situation. It's going to happen to them in 3 years with their school. But Farmington really should be the team that needs to dominate that division. And, if they don't win that division, then there's something seriously wrong under Coach Terrence Porter. And Porter's a good guy. But if they don't win that division, then something's seriously wrong with Farmington. And last but not least, the blue division, of course. I think this is going to be the toughest division in the entire league. When you have the talent level of each of the teams in this league, Avondale, Oxford, Rochester, Orion, Seaholm, and Groves, all returning some key players on their team. When you look at Avondale, it's Jordan Latham, of course. He was very talented a year ago. Rochester, of course, had a huge improvement this year, winning 9 games. You have Hunter Slasher, Ivan Barraza Duran back, and you also have good big and Michael Goodrich coming back. And then of course here's Oxford. Oxford, of course, they have a new coach coming in. I'm not sure who it's going to be yet, but you returned Jordan Jaden, Justin Navalis, Ray Levine. You still you got to find somebody to replace Clay Rapatis, of course. For what happened there, but you're going to have a lot of talent on that team. The question is going to be the bench of Oxford, and we'll see what happens there with Oxford. And then you got you got Lake Orion. This is a team that really lost a lot of talent when you lose David Gomez, Noah Harris, Chris Dudek. But watch out for players like Pierce Burke, Casey Stronach, and Jordan Lewis, and Jamie Lewis, is going to be, I think, a special basketball player in Lake Orion. I think he's the next David Gomez. And then you have Steven Zemieski, who I think is going to be a surprise nobody will be talking much about. But I think Jim Mantel's got a very good team, coming back. It'll be a tough division, no doubt about that. So, and of course, got Groves, who under Mark West, very nice year in the gold, got moved up. Nice run to the state. To the regional semifinal. Won that district. I think Mark West's team's gonna be all right. Seaholm, they're gonna be better improved. They do lose two key players, but seeing Seaholm in there, Groves in there, I think makes a lot of sense for not only the girls' sake, but also the boys' sake as well. So the league, it's bright, but the question's going to be is can anybody touch Clarkson in the red division? Right now, that answer is an obvious no. So we'll see what happens in the league. That concludes the boys basketball segment here on the podcast. When we come back, we'll talk about open enrollment football and also my thoughts about girls soccer, among other sports. Here on actually, we also got all-state mentions, so I'll talk about that coming up real shortly here on OAA Now.
Hello, Lake Orion. It's Anthony Taramina, co-host of Between Taraminas. I want to let you know of a new show called History Now. In it, we're going to talk about global, national, and political events that occur in our lifetime. We're going to also have guests and also have co-hosts as well, and also plenty of surprises. Catch us on History Now here on ONTV.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina here. Of course, the state released their all-state top players. When I look at basketball and the all-state, couple players I thought personally that should have been on there that are not on there. I know girls basketball released their all-state top players. I thought Mackenzie Harbord should not have been an all-team second player because Seaholm, when you look at Seaholm and girls basketball, they really don't play anybody special except Southfield. If Harbord was playing against teams like Orion, Bloomfield Hills, Clarkston, Stony Creek, Southfield, on a consistent basis, I would say she's an all-state player, but I don't think she's an all-state player. I think a couple players on the honorable mention I think should have been on that team, maybe first team, maybe second team. I think Maddie Novak of Lake Orion should have been, I think, an all-state second team. Kiera Crockett's another one at North Farmington who I think should have been an all-state player. Kiera Fletcher was on that second team. I was a little surprised he was not on the Class A team. When I look at evaluating talent around there, I think Mackenzie Harbord's name, until she plays somebody, until she plays Lake Orion, Stony Creek, Bloomfield Hills, any teams from the red and the white division, then I cannot consider you an all-state player. I really can't. Because until you play somebody, and that's what I'm saying. You want to be an all-state player, you got to play somebody. You look at some players in the state of Michigan who played somebody. Look at Maggie Rogers. She's played the red, and she's played a lot of the white. She deserves to be an all-state player. You look at Maddie Novak. She deserves to be an all-state player because of who she's played against. Kira Crockett, same thing. Amanda Safe, same thing. But Harbord really has not played anybody. Really, and when you play against bad teams, Harbord's points go up considerably. And when you're playing against good teams, she tends to struggle. Now, I know Seaholm's looking for wins, but if I'm Seaholm, this is a perfect opportunity for him to toughen up your non-conference schedule and basically say, you know what? Let's play a Clarkston. Let's play a Lake Orion. Let's play a Stony Creek. Let's play a Bloomfield Hills. I mean, you need to play those type of teams if you want to be successful. Now, this year I was hard on Jeff Rubin for his non-conference. But I'm not going to be that hard on him because when you look at his non-conference next year, but Seaholm has got to play a similar non-conference schedule. I think that Bloomfield Hills is going to be playing this year. Play some people in the red. You're in the blue division, but play some people at least. Play 3 red opponents. Play 2 white opponents. That makes a lot of sense. I got the perfect solution if you're Seaholm. You play Lake Orion. You play Lake Orion. Play Bloomfield Hills. Play Stony Creek. Those 3 teams will at least get you ready for the district playoffs next season. But we'll see what happens if I'm Seaholm. If I'm Seaholm, I'm playing those 3 teams immediately. But that's what my thoughts are. That's my rant on with the All-State with girls basketball. When you look at, I blame the state for open enrollment because of what's going on with a lot of people are starting to leave. Some prominent names leaving the OAA to go to a Catholic school like Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Of course, mentioned Kane Prescorn. Now Matt Sokol now is leaving Rochester Adams to go to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and I know that chemistry very well from those days at Adams. So Orchard Lake St. Mary's in football will probably be very deadly heading into the season. Especially when they get into Division III, so that's going to be very interesting, no doubt about that. Spring sports well underway. Lacrosse is starting up. Some played their first 2 games. Some played their last couple games. But when you look at what happened, and then got girls soccer, of course, some big wins the other night. Stony Creek going into Macomb, Dakota, knocking them off. Troy Athens losing a tough one early in the year. Of course, Orion had a really disappointing loss to Berkeley. Of course, Cecilia Summers had a big goal in that game for the Bears. Of course, Summers, we all know what she did in girls basketball. Very talented player. But when you look at girls soccer, the best, Rochester's got some questions because of Zoe Schultz injury. She injured during soccer season. I don't know if she'll be back or not, ready to go. But when you look at teams, I think, who could be the best team in girls soccer, it could be Stony Creek because of who they got back, who they return. I mean, this is a team that really, they're good. They're a well-oiled machine. They're a well-oiled machine based, in everybody in the Rochester area. You got Rochester Adams, Rochester, Troy Athens. I mean, that is like soccer heaven down there. It's those 3 areas. And it's kind of odd in girls soccer that Orion, Clarkston, and Oxford are all in the same division for girls soccer. Are you serious? The three biggest schools in the entire league, if you count Troy, are down in that division, in the white division. Very interesting dynamic. Did not know that. But when you look at the strength of girls soccer, I think when you look at those 5 teams who can make some damage, Stony Creek out of those, I think, can make the most serious damage. Now, I'm not saying Troy could do, or Troy Athens, or Rochester or Adams could, but I just think Stony Creek probably has the best shot of doing it. Pretty much. I think that's the mecca of soccer around the OAA is that Rochester-Troy area, because that is the mecca. Also, you got Avondale who can make some damage as well in there. Avondale, always solid girls soccer program down there. Track and field, of course, their indoor season's concluding this weekend with the indoor state meet. Oak Park. Is there any team in this league that can contain Oak Park? I mean, the Knights have had a strong second place finish in the girls at Eastern Michigan in the indoor relays. Also, their boys end up winning a winning that invitational. Is there any team that can knock off Oak Park in track and field? And to me, it's a simple answer. No. And, it's because of what their program has done. Their program, they have a lot of girls that run AU track. They have an AU type of coach in there. Done a magnificent job. He coached at Detroit Mumford for a time. And they're still very good. I like the program he's run. I really do. But the question is, does he have the field events to back up his sprinting and his distance? Now, going up against probably a team like Orion, of course, they're known for their depths. Clarkson, same thing. When you look at depth, you know what I mean? Yeah. But your depth's got to be very athletic, very talented depth. I think those big schools like Orion, Oxford, Clarkson have that. Oxford clearly has, I think, the best shot putter and discus thrower in Connor Mandel. He's the best thrower in the state. I mean, but the question's going to be how is Oxford around? How is their team around them? That's the $1 million question for Oxford. Girls track, I think, when you look at the red division, I think Clarkson and Orion and Rochester are going to battle it out. I really do. All those teams have great distances, distance kids. Clarkson with Darwimple. Orion's got some very talented kids on that team. Rochester, we know that they've been a power for a while. I really like that Clarkston. I really like that. And then the white, of course, and then of course the other divisions. It's gonna be very interesting. Track and field will be very interesting. We'll see what happens there in that process. Tennis, of course, I still think it's gonna be Clarkston that wins it. They're the top team. We got Seaholm in there that can make some noise along with Adams. Water polo, very interesting there. Not much to say there. Haven't looked at it much. Lacrosse, of course, we mentioned that earlier. Still, season's plenty young. We talk girls soccer. Baseball, season really hasn't began yet, but some teams have still played some games. Softball, the season really hasn't began yet. It probably will start after spring break. So spring break's going to be coming up really shortly. Of course, it'll probably start Friday, but there's still some teams playing. And then everybody goes on a spring break for a week. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Right now, final thoughts here is going to be keeping an eye on what's going on around the league. Of course, football. Got a long list of players to keep an eye on heading in the year. A lot of players from Southfield, Arts and Tech, Knology, and also West Bloomfield. Is it a really good idea to expose yourself to sites like D-Zone? I know Jeff Corn's a great person. But is it a good idea? Really? I mean, because you're opening up the door, I think, for scouters, and I think it's dangerous. So, to get their name known, I understand for colleges' purposes, rights, but is it good enough to know if you're a scouter, it's dangerous? It is very dangerous because they'll know your strengths and weaknesses as well. That's a question to ask for another time. So, all right, I'm signing out here. Take care. Good luck. Good luck rest of the week. Enjoy this wonderful day. Enjoy it. God bless all. Good night. Take care. See you next week.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.